Okay, perfect. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for joining us for our webinar today. My name is Justin Chalfant. I am the founder here at Patch My PC. For those of you who might be looking at our product for the first time on this webinar, just a little background about our company. We do third-party application management and patching for Microsoft Configuration Manager and Intune. What we're going to be doing in this webinar is we're going to actually look at what it looks like to set up our product from start to finish and go through basically how quickly you can have a solution set up for automating your application management. Now, within your GoToWebinar meeting, just take note of the questions section. If any time throughout this demo you have any questions that come up, we have about 6 people from our team that's currently monitoring the questions in chat. So feel free, throughout the demo, if anything does come up, just, either raise your hand or just put it right there in the question box, and we'll be sure to answer that as we go. Now, with regards to this demo, we're actually going to go ahead and get started on setting it up. So just for a little bit of context on what we're going to be doing today, we're going to go through how our product integrates directly into SCCM as well as Microsoft Intune. So a little context of our environment. We can see that within our current SCCM console, we do not have any third-party patches currently published. So we can see we just have a few Microsoft updates, and we can also take a look and see that we don't have any third-party applications created. So we're going to go through and actually go through the creation process within Configuration Manager. And we're going to also look at how our newer Microsoft Intune application management looks as well. So we can see within our current Intune tenant, the only application that we have kind of pre-configured here is Notepad++. So let's go ahead and just get started and show you what this would look like if you wanted to set up our product within your environment. So what we can do here is if you look at our trial page, if you want to get started with just evaluating things and seeing how things are going, what you can do is go to that page and go ahead and request a 30-day full access trial. So this will give you access to the entire catalog. This will allow you to publish all products to either SCCM or Microsoft Intune from our catalog. Once you get that, you can go over to the download and docs page, and you can download the latest publishing utility from our website. This is going to be about a couple megabyte utility, and what this is used for is actually publishing the third-party updates to either SCCM or Microsoft Intune. So we use the same product to publish to both Intune or SCCM, or one or the other depending on your needs. So this is a pretty basic installation. The only real question that you're going to get during the setup is, do you want to enable Intune standalone mode? So if you're in an Intune only environment, what this prompt will do is allow you to disable some of the prerequisite checks related to Configuration Manager and WSUS. So if you're in Intune only, you would want to make sure to choose that option to only enable Intune standalone mode. So once we go ahead and get this installed, the first thing that we're going to see within our utility is just some options that we have to configure. Now, in the event that you are using the third-party software update feature and you want to publish third-party updates to WSUS and have them synchronize into Configuration Manager, there is one prerequisite that you need to have configured before you can start doing that publishing. So you need to have a code signing certificate that's used for publishing the third-party updates. So you can either do one of two things you can do here. So you can either import one from a PKI. So if you have a code signing cert that you got through like Active Directory Certificate Services and you want to use one from a trusted PKI, you can do that. The second option is you can generate a self-signed certificate directly from our tool. And this gives you a little bit of flexibility, like how long do you want it to be valid for? You can even change the common name if you want. So something like Patch My PC Cert, and then we can click on Generate Certificate. So what this certificate allows you to do is this is how clients can trust the updates that get published, because since these are going to be signed using your certificate, clients need to make sure that they trust that because it's not an update coming directly from Microsoft, which would be a trusted source. Now, in order to actually deploy that certificate out to the clients that we just enabled, we do have this option where within our software update point, we can allow SCCM to automatically import that certificate that we generate. So we just enable that checkbox. And then what we can do is next time the software update point is synchronized, if we look at the WSync Manager log for SCCM, we're going to see that it's going to go and import that certificate in order to allow it to be deployed to your client. So here's where we can see after that synchronization started, it imported that certificate that we just generated. And now if we go back into our software update point, we should see that it automatically read that certificate. And that's going to allow the clients to trust any updates that we're publishing from our service into WSUS and SCCM. Now, the only other client prerequisite that you would want to do is within the client settings, you would want to make sure that you enable the option to allow third-party updates. So, if you're using Configuration Manager for third-party updates, you would simply enable that certificate management option, and then you would allow third-party updates using this client setting. Now, at this point, we're pretty much done with all the prerequisites when it comes to software updates. Now, one thing that I'll mention about our publishing tool, after you initially get this configured, everything going forward is really going to be totally automated. So you would be using either the SCCM console if you're using on-prem management with SCCM, or you'd be using the Intune console, and our service is simply automating the publishing of those applications and updates whenever they come out. So the first thing that we're going to look at here is our Updates tab. So the Updates tab, that's going to correspond to third-party updates that get published into SCCM as a software update. So any of the products that we enable here in the Updates tab, this is going to automatically sync those third-party updates into the all software updates within SCCM. And this can be used to update existing versions of applications that are out of date on existing devices. So that's going to allow you to make sure that you're keeping your third-party applications patched and up to date to help you stay secure and have the applications just, running more stable in most instances for the latest version. Now, the next thing that we're going to look at is our Config Manager Apps tab. So what the Config Manager Apps tab allows us to do is automatically create applications within Configuration Manager. So these can be used to deploy products even if they're not already installed on the device. So this could be used within task sequences or collection deployments within your environment. And the last tab that we're going to look at, this is related to our newer feature for Microsoft Intune. And what this is going to allow you to do is automatically publish applications as a Win32 application to Microsoft Intune that you can then deploy using Intune if you're managing your devices in the cloud. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and start with enabling some updates to publish. Now, we do have quite a large list of products within our catalog. If we look at the supported products page, you can see all the different applications that we have within our catalog. So what's interesting about that is if there's an application that we do not have that you have within your environment, you can go to our user voice page. So what that would be is, if you have an application that you want to see added, you can go to ideas.patchmypc.com, and then you can come in here and you can vote up different applications that have either already been requested, or if they're not already requested, you can create a new idea, and that's how we evaluate new products that would be added to our catalog. Now, as far as the number of products that we add, if we go ahead and look at our roadmap, just to give you some context of that, you can just go to patchmypc.com/roadmap. You can see in the last 3 months in our public roadmap what we've shipped as far as new features and new products based on that customer feedback. So anything in the dark blue would be a new product. So for example, we can see that we added about 5 products so far this month. Now, in order to actually start enabling these products, you could either come in here and start selecting either the vendors or the individual products that you want to publish. But since there is a large list, we do have this option where we can automatically query your Configuration Manager hardware inventory data for the installed products, and it will show you based on which products we support within our catalog, how many of those are already installed within your environment. So for example, if we just said, we have 300 and some products that we already have installed that we support, you could simply come in here and query, and within a single click, you could automatically have all these products enabled within your environment without having to go manually pick and choose what you think you may have. Now, within that same query, we do also have an option where you can automatically enable these products, even if it's a product that we add in the future, based on it existing within your environment and being installed on a specific number of devices or more. So if you wanted to auto-enable products, even products that we add in the future, so you don't have to manually come back into our tool, we can have certain criteria based on a specific number of devices having that new product in your environment where we auto-enable it. Now, for this demo, what we're going to do is enable a couple of updates to publish. Now, before we go through and enable these updates, I do want to cover some of the customizations that you can apply within your environment if you want. So, for example, these are options that we can apply at the all products level. So that means that they would recursively apply to all products that we select within our tool. So let's say that we want to automatically delete any public desktop icons that an update may install, like Google Chrome for all users, for example. Let's also go through and say we want to disable the self-updater for all products that support that. And then lastly, we're going to say that we want to enable logging for any of the updates or applications that we enable. So what that's going to do is we're going to automatically apply the log parameter to any of the MSI or EXE based installers for either the update or the application that gets installed. So what that's helpful for is, let's say that you go through here and you go and configure, an application, but let's say that it fails to install. So by default, we save all the client install logs for the vendor's installers to a subfolder of your CCM logs folder. You can also choose whether you want to prefix the log with the computer name. And then the last option is, let's say that the update failed to install, meaning it gave us a non-zero exit code. We can copy those failed logs to a secondary folder, like a UNC path that you could use to diagnose why the updates may have failed. So instead of just getting a generic 1603 exit code for an MSI-based update, you could actually look at the vendor's install log to figure out at what point during the update or application installation the installer actually failed. So was it unable to copy a file, or was it unable to set a registry value, for example? So it can be very helpful for troubleshooting why things may not be working. Now, for the updates, we're going to go ahead and enable Google Chrome 64-bit as a software update for SCCM. We can see that we have all those customizations applied. Now, once we get to the product level, we have 3 more options that we can apply. So we can add a custom pre or post script if you wanted to configure the product in a specific way. So in this example, what we're going to do is run a post-action PowerShell script. And what this PowerShell script is going to do is it's going to set the home page to patchmypc.com. So it's just going to set a few registry values for Google Chrome's post install that's going to configure the home page for all users. So if you wanted to make sure that you have a standard configuration that's specific to your environment, that's where the customizations and scripts can really be helpful, because you can make whatever flexibility and changes that you want based on your needs. We can also add transforms if it's an MSI, or you can add a custom command line if it was like a licensed product, for example. The next update that we're going to enable is Java 8 32-bit. Now for this one, what I'm going to do is right-click it. And for Java, since sometimes it can be problematic if the Java process is running while it's being updated, we're going to choose this option to automatically close the process before the installation. So that's just another right-click option that we can apply and customize the update installation. And then I'll apply those settings. So the next tab we're going to jump over to is actually creating our applications that we can use for base installations within Microsoft Configuration Manager. So before we actually go through and start enabling some products, there are some basic options that we need to configure. So you just need to tell us where your SMS provider is within SCCM. You need to give us a root UNC path that we can use to save all the content. And then there's a few other customizations that we can apply as well. So let's say, for example, we wanted all the applications to move into a separate subfolder. So we can see over here within our SCCM console, we have this Patch My PC folder in the applications. So let's say that we wanted all the applications that we create to go into that folder for organization, for example. We can set that. And then the last option that's pretty common here is how do you want to handle your applications when there's a new update available to them? So for example, let's say that Google Chrome version 79 got created as an application within SCCM. How do you want to, how do you want to handle the next update when Google Chrome version 80 comes out, for example? So there's two ways you can do this. You can allow us to automatically update the previous version in place. So we'll just update the content location and download the new Chrome installer and then update your distribution points. That would make sure that you're always deploying the latest version within your task sequences or collection deployments. Or if you want to have more change control, you can create a new application within SCCM whenever there's a new update. So if you don't want to have the existing application auto update, you could choose the bottom option. And then we can automatically distribute it to distribution point groups, and that's pretty much it. Now, we have very similar right-click options available for the applications, but what I'm going to do is let's go down to Google Chrome, and since we've already enabled Java in Chrome for our software updates within SCCM, we have this duplicate option. So if we choose the copy option, this will automatically enable any of the products that you enabled for the update publishing. It will also enable them to be created as a base application within SCCM as well. So we can see that we chose the duplicate option, and that also included the right-click customizations that we had applied. So for Google Chrome, for example, since we also applied the customizations, even if you were deploying Google Chrome for the first time within your environment, you could have the ability to have the home page set using your script, delete the shortcuts, and turn off self-updates could all be applied even during the first installation of that product using our application. Now for our applications, let's also enable 7-zip. Now, when we right-click at the product for applications, we can see that we probably have about 5 additional customizations that we can apply for the application. So for example, let's say that we wanted 7-zip to go into its own folder within the console. You can be more specific at the product level where you could have it automatically move, for example. Okay, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and apply those settings. And then the last option here would be Microsoft Intune. So all we would do for Intune is come in here and enable the Intune publishing. And then the only prerequisites that you would have to do, which is all documented in our step-by-step guide, is you would have to just configure your Intune tenant domain. And then there would be a process for you to create a application ID within Azure where you could give us permissions to talk to your Intune tenant. So that's going to be what allows us to go in and have the ability to create the applications within your environment. Now, there are a few additional options. Now, since Intune doesn't have any type of supersedence functionality, what we did is we basically created our own way to keep your applications up to date. So for example, we have the ability to automatically copy any assignments from any previous versions when there's a new update. So let's say that Chrome 79 was created and it was assigned to all users. We would have an association when the next update comes out for, let's say, version 80, and we could automatically say, we see that you deployed 79 to all users. Let me duplicate that and also deploy version 80 to the all users Azure AD group. We also have this option where we could delete any of the assignments for the previous version of that product. So that would make sure that in the instance that we just gave you before, only version 80 would be assigned and version 79 would not be assigned. And these are all configurable based on this checkbox. So you could configure this for whichever way works best for your environment. But outside of that, the Intune is going to be really the same process. So we can come in here and choose which products that you want to publish as a Intune application. We can also do all the same duplication settings where we could copy any of the apps that we enabled for updates or apps within SCCM in the event that you're using all three. So maybe you're using code management and you want to do all your updates in SCCM and you want to do some apps in SCCM, but maybe you also want to create Intune apps because you have some devices that are managed via Intune. So we can also duplicate all those same options. Now for this example, let's go ahead and just uncheck Java for Intune just for time's sake. So we'll go ahead and apply these settings. So what we should have right now is we have Chrome and Java enabled for an update. we have Chrome, Java, and 7-zip enabled for an application for SCCM, and then we have Chrome enabled for a Intune application. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start my synchronization. So what that's going to do is that's going to get all these apps downloading and creating in the background within SCCM and Intune. So we'll just go ahead and open that log file up. And while we're waiting for that to be published, we can go ahead and look at our sync schedule. So by default, we're going to synchronize our catalog every day at 7 p.m. So this is going to be where we go out and we check whether there are any new third-party updates that we've released for any of the products that you've enabled. So that's every night by default, and we usually do about 4 to 5 catalog updates per week, just because third-party updates don't correspond to like a patch Tuesday once a month, for example. Now, if you wanted to configure this so maybe you only publish third-party updates once a month, you could configure the schedule in any way that you want. And then kind of the last option here is alerts. So since our tool is really kind of, you set it up once and then you don't really need to come back into it, we need to let you know whenever there's been any new updates or applications published within your environment. So this is where the alerts come into play. So you can either get email alerts where you can get notified via email, or one of our newer features is Microsoft Teams notifications. So you can automatically let a Teams webhook know whenever there's been a new update or application published. So we can see that we just got a notification letting us know that we had a new update published. So for example, we can see this update was published to SCCM. We can see it was for Google Chrome version 80. We can also see that the release notes are directly clickable. So you can automatically go out to the release notes and see things like, was this a security update, for example, and you can look at the vendor's release notes to get more information. We're also going to tell you the severity and classification of that third-party update, as well as any CVEs. So if you have a CVE that was associated with that update that was just published to your environment, you can click out and we'll take you directly to the National Vulnerability Database, where you can see the specific details that were affected by that vulnerability for that update that was published. So this might determine, if it's a security update with fixes, you might want to deploy this kind of out of scope of your typical patches, for example. So what we can do here, for example, is we can see that Java also had the same type of information for the software update. So we can see, we could go out and look at Java release notes. We could see all the same CVEs and go click out to see what was affected by those. So at this point, it looks like our software updates are published for Java and Chrome. We can now see that we just created a new application for 7-zip, and then we just created a new application for Google Chrome. And then lastly, we also created the app for 7-zip. So what's probably happening now is we can see that we're starting to upload our application to Microsoft Intune. So at this point, it's just in the last phase where we're also creating the app in Intune. If we jump over to Microsoft Intune, we might see that we kind of have the placeholder already for Google Chrome as well. So we can see that Chrome is starting to be created. We can see it's still in the process of uploading though, so it's not available quite yet for deployment. So while we're waiting for that to finish up for Intune, let's go ahead and jump over to SCCM and show you, after this first setup that we're now complete, what your typical kind of day-to-day would look like when you're managing the applications either in SCCM or Microsoft Intune. So if we go ahead and synchronize our software update point, and let's go ahead and look at our applications first, because they're going to be created right away and we don't have to wait for our sync. So we can see that we've automatically got our applications created. So if I go ahead and look at Google Chrome, for example, and look at the properties, we can see that this application is fully created. We can see that we have all our Software Center details like the icon, the keywords, the name, the description, the URL, the privacy statement. So basically everything would be ready to deploy to your devices at this point. We can also see for that 7-zip application, we automatically moved it to that subfolder as well if you wanted to stay organized at the product level, for example. We can now see that our Intune application was published and we get the same Microsoft Teams notifications for that as well. Now, in the event that you wanted to get notified via email whenever there's something that's published, this is what our email notifications would look like. So it's very similar, where you could see the release notes. These are all clickable, and you could just get all the details about any of the applications, updates, or Intune apps that were published. You can also see the same CVE information and classification data. So let's go over to our software updates piece now. So we can now see that we have Google Chrome and Java showing up in our console as a software update. We can also see that we're starting to get some scan data back from our clients as well. So once we've enabled the products that we want to publish, and that happens automatically, you know, everything from a day-to-day deployment perspective would be exactly like if you were coming in and deploying Microsoft updates. It all reports the same exact way, and it all deploys the same exact way within SCCM. So for example, you could come in here and you could right-click and create a software update group manually and then download it and deploy it. Or if you wanted to use automation, we did have an automatic deployment rule kind of preset up here that said, let's automatically deploy any third-party update from Patch My PC, and let's deploy that to my devices. So within that ADR, I had 3 different collection deployments. So I have kind of a pilot, a broad pilot, and production. So we have all the same options like your deadline, when do you want it to automatically apply, whether or not you want to show notifications in Software Center, maintenance window behavior, and restart behavior. Everything would be just like a Microsoft deployment. You would have all the same options for downloading your content into a deployment package, having it go to your existing distribution points, and creating your software update groups. So we make use of all your existing infrastructure so you don't need any additional servers or client agents. We're using all the functionality within SCCM. So we can see that these actually already got deployed. Now, the only step that I'm going to do here before I jump over to our client is I'm going to deploy these applications to the all users collection just using a PowerShell script. So that's going to deploy the Chrome, Java, and 7-zip application just so we can see what it looks like within Software Center of our client. So what I'm going to do now, let me quickly just share a different window here. We're going to jump over to the client. Okay, so we should be able to see our client now within our configuration. So we can see that we already have the updates showing up. So we can see that we have Google Chrome and Java showing up, and that's because it's showing up as a software update. So that's going to happen because we can see that we have outdated versions already installed on this client. So we have Java 8 update 221, and then we have Google Chrome 77. So we can see the latest versions of that would be Chrome 80 and then Java 8 update 241. So what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and look at a Google Chrome. So if we look at our Chrome on the public desktop shortcut and open that up, we can see that we don't have any custom homepage. It's just set to google.com. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and start the installation of Chrome. Now, if you remember, we did enable logging for the Google Chrome installer. So what we should see happen here in a minute, we automatically create that subfolder within your client CCM logs, and we now have the verbose MSI log for Google Chrome. So in the event that Chrome ever failed, you could actually go look at what was the actual reason for that. Now, in addition to the vendor's install log, we do also create our own installation log that will show you everything that we're doing, including customizations. So for example, we can see that we're running Google Chrome's MSI, and we automatically added the logging parameter based on the right-click option to enable logging. Okay. So we can see that after that update completed with an exit code of 0, we then deleted the public desktop shortcut for Chrome. We then set 3 different registry values that would turn off the self-update for Chrome. And then the last customization was that PowerShell script that I decided to add. So if we look, we can now see that that shortcut is gone. And then if we launch Google Chrome from the Start menu, we can see that the homepage for Google Chrome was automatically set using that custom PowerShell script that we deployed. And that's now set to patchmypc.com. There we go. And now let's take a quick look at Java. So we can see that Java currently has self-updates enabled. So we just deployed Java using a typical application, but we did not turn off the self-update feature. So let's see if we can quickly come out here and find the Java update policy just to show you what's going to happen whenever we deploy this Java update. JavaSoft. So we can see here under the Java update, we can see that there's no option to turn it off. So it's just kind of set for the Java update key. It's just set to enable Java updates equals 1, and that's the default value. Now, what we're going to see happen when I kick this off, we're going to see the Java control panel app automatically close because we enabled that customization that we wanted to close any Java processes to make sure the update can apply successfully. So within that same patch my PC log, you will see all of these customizations taking place. Like, for example, if it did close any processes, we would be able to see that. We can now see that we're currently running the latest Java installer. So if we come back to our vendor logs, we can see that even for exe-based installers, if they support logging, we'll automatically add the logging switch and save it in whatever folder that you define that you want to save your log. So we can see that that's now complete. And then we can see within our log file that we set the registry values to turn off the self-update. So we can see that we switched all of these to 0, as well as creating some additional values to turn off self-updates. So if we were to come back into our Java control panel app, we can see that the update tab is now completely hidden because we disabled that globally. Now, the last thing that we'll look at is our 7-zip application. So on this machine, we can see if we look at add and remove programs that we do not have 7-zip currently installed. So this would be a scenario where you could use our application feature to deploy applications even if they're not already installed. So for example, we can see that 7-zip isn't here. So this could either be a collection deployment, or you could deploy these in your task sequences if you wanted to automatically have them install, even if they're not there. So this can save you a ton of time in your packaging, as well as make sure that your applications stay up to date within your environment as well, and you're not deploying old apps. So we can now see that 7-zip is installed. And we do also allow you to uninstall applications as well. So maybe you wanted to deploy an application as an uninstall type, you can automatically uninstall those apps as well. All right, so let me jump back over to our server. Come over here. Now there is one pretty cool option that I forgot to mention for Microsoft Intune. Let's go ahead and look at that really quick now. So let's go ahead and create a new application for Intune, and let's enable 7-zip there as well. Now, one thing that we can do within Intune is we can right click and we can automatically deploy our applications as well if we want. So for example, let's say that you want to deploy all the applications that you enabled to Intune, and you want to make them available to all users within your Azure AD All Users group. You can also select any custom groups if you want to be more specific, but let's say that we want to go ahead and deploy those and make those applications available. So let me go ahead and run a synchronization, and that should get 7-zip starting to create within Intune. Now, if we go ahead and look at Intune now that we should have had time for it to automatically create, we should see that Google Chrome is now available to deploy since it's now uploaded. So for example, we can see that we have all the same information like our descriptions, our keywords, our icons. And since I did not have the assignment option already created when I enabled Chrome, let's go ahead and make this available. Let's make it available to all users. So we'll make it available here, and we'll add the all users group, and then we'll go ahead and save that assignment for Google Chrome. And we should also see, if we come back to our applications, we should have 7-zip starting to get created as well. So we just got our Teams notification that 7-zip was created, and we can now see that it's showing up within Intune. We can see, since I added the assignment where I deployed it to all users for 7-zip, we can see that that one was automatically deployed from our product, so you don't have to manually go into Microsoft Intune and deploy these if you wanted to enable them all at once. So before we jump over to our Intune client, that really covers the entire setup for both SCCM and Microsoft Intune. As far as reporting goes, though, we do have some reports available for compliance usage. So if you go into our service, we have an option where you can install some SSRS dashboards for free. So even if you're not a customer, you can go into the advanced tab of our publisher, and you can automatically install these. So these are free regardless of whether you subscribe or not. Now, these were reports originally done by a Microsoft engineer who was just doing an example blog post of how you can create custom dashboards for software update compliance. So what we did, we added a few new operating systems to that, and we created an installer that will automatically link all the reports to your environment and your site code. So for example, if we come in here, we can see how many servers and workstations that you're managing. You can then look at compliance numbers for each month. for either workstations or servers. So let's say for the month of March, we can see that we're 89% compliant. Now this includes Microsoft and third-party updates, but there is another dashboard where you could report on just third-party updates if you wanted to. So you could break into each one of these months and you could see which updates are missing. So for example, we have a cumulative update that is missing on 7 devices. We can also see all these different third-party updates within this lab environment. So we can see there's a new update for Google Chrome. We can see that's missing on 3 devices, and that's a security update. Now, if we wanted to click into that update, depending on how deep you drill into our software update dashboard, we might take you into some of the native reports within SCCM where you could get very specific if you want. So you could see what are those 3 workstations that require that update, for example. Okay. Now, in addition to the dashboards that you can install from us, since the compliance gets reported just like any other Microsoft update, if you're using any of the free Power BI dashboards that are available, so for example, this is the free one available from Microsoft, we can go ahead and look at the Update Compliance tab of this. And we can see that we also will list out any of the third-party updates, even within any of these other solutions. So if you're using, a free Microsoft Power BI dashboard, or maybe you're using some of the free Power BI dashboards available from scconfigmanager.com, all of these would work the exact same way. So you could see all the third-party update compliance, just like if it was a Microsoft update, for example. Okay. Now, while I'm waiting for this, let me see if I can jump over to the Intune client, and let's see if we can show you what that looks like. Okay, so we're now on our Intune device. Now, Intune, sometimes there can be some delays for when it actually gets policy for these assignments. So it looks like we do actually have them showing up though. So that's good. So we can see, which applications were deployed within Microsoft Intune from our service, and you can come into company portal, and these would function just like any other deployment, right? So you can see, all the information here. We could come in and let's see. Now, sometimes these can take a few minutes to download, so we might not be able to go through the entire installation just because things can be a little bit slower downloading from the internet. But once these applications are created within Intune, they're going to work just like any other Win32 application. So you're going to be able to come in here and see all the info. That does also include like the description that we add. So we add the URLs for the apps. We also add the privacy information. So just like what we saw in Software Center within SCCM, it's going to be the same type of experience if you're familiar with Intune for the applications that we create there as well. But that includes most of what I had as far as the demo goes. Let me go ahead and switch it back to our server. Okay, so now we're back. I guess as a wrapping up, we'll cover some of the pricing information. So if you come to our website, we don't hide our pricing behind like any quotes where you have to go in and put your information in. If you go to the request a quote page at the bottom of that, you have a pricing table that just describes all the pricing options that we have. So what I showed you today was the Enterprise Plus subscription. So that's going to include the ability to create applications as a base install within SCCM. That will include the software update feature within SCCM where you can publish the updates. And that will also include the Microsoft Intune application publishing. So if you want kind of that top tier that includes all features that allows you to use SCCM and Intune, you would want to go with the Enterprise Plus subscription. That's going to be $3.5 per device a year. As far as if you only want to worry about third-party patching within SCCM, so if you don't need the application feature within SCCM, or if you don't need the application feature within Microsoft Intune, that's $2 per device a year. And then lastly, if you're only in the cloud and you only care about the Microsoft Intune Win32 applications, that subscription is going to be $2.5 per device per year. So that pretty much covers all the pricing options. So that looks good there. Let's go ahead and try to get out of that. Let's go ahead and bring up our questions. So if you have any additional questions, please type those into the questions within the webinar. It looks like we have quite a few that's already been answered. but I'll kind of browse through here, and if there's any questions that I think would be good and could be a common one, I'll go ahead and kind of answer them here on the call as well. So can you add Slack as an option for our notifications? That's really good feedback. So it looks like that's been answered. So if you want to ask for any additional features, that's really going to be where our ideas portal comes into play. So everything that we do from a feature perspective, everything comes from our customers and their feedback. So if there's any new features that you want to see, which let's just see if Slack has been requested yet. It might have. So here's, it looks like that's just to add the Slack client as a supported app, which we've added. So if you wanted to see Slack as like a webhook where you can get the same type of notifications as Microsoft Teams, just go submit that in our ideas portal. And then everything that we add will map that to our roadmap. So you can see almost everything that we add here, does have a customer tag, and it's coming directly from the feedback that we're getting based on that ideas.patchmypc.com. A public RSS feed looks like that's already been answered. So if you want to get notified about any new catalog updates, we do have an RSS feed that includes all the different RSS feeds or all the different posts that we do. So if you want to get notified about any updates that we have to our catalog, you can, subscribe to our RSS feed by just going to patchmypc.com/feed, and that will allow you to see all the recent posts and catalog updates that we've done within our service. Are we free to use your product license in a test environment? So if you check out our FAQs page, let's say that within your company you have multiple environments, you have a test, you have a dev, you have a production. You can use the same subscription as long as the device count is covered, and you could have it installed like in all your different environments within your company. Now, if you're more of like a home lab, you could do a trial, or you could enable what we call our public trial mode, which would be helpful for labs if you just want to learn about the product. You can come into our tool and you can enable the trial mode, and this just limits you to a small subset of products, so you're not going to have access to the full catalog. But this one does not currently have a time limit to it, so you can use that within your lab to understand how things are working if you want to know about how you could set up in a lab environment. So this is a good question. So is there any way to only install on devices that already have the application within Intune? So today, you would have to create an Azure AD group. So it would be limited to whatever criteria that you can use to detect an application within Intune. So I'm not sure how in-depth the inventory and reporting is in Intune. I know that it's not at the point where SCCM is, so it would depend on whether or not you can pull the installed applications and create groups based on that within Intune. So I don't know if it's there yet, but if you can do that within Intune, that would be available if you can create your groups based on that. So we do not support Macs today. So to answer the question about whether we would support DMG installers for Mac, that would be no. So multi-language programs, yeah, so we do support some multi-language applications. The big one that comes to mind would be Firefox. So for example, if we come in here and look at Firefox, we can see that we do support quite a few additional languages for Mozilla Firefox. Now, within our ideas portal, so if we come back to ideas.patchmypc.com, we do have a specific category that includes language support. So if there's a language specific installer where they do not have like a multi-language installer, you could come in and you could submit a new request, and we're tracking specific language requests in its own category. So, we're definitely going through and adding additional languages for products that need that based on our customer feedback. Yeah, so do users have the ability to control when applications get installed? So the answer to that is going to be yes. You have all the same functionality for the way that you create your deployments through SCCM or Intune. So you can make it available. That would give the user the flexibility to install it whenever they want. You can make it required if you wanted to push it out automatically. You could control the visibility based on your Intune or SCCM deployment settings. So yeah, you definitely have the options to do whichever you need there. As far as content goes, so we had a question, do you have to upload your third-party updates to Cloud Management Gateway? The answer would be yes to that. And the reason for that is because if you remember, any third-party update that you publish, it gets signed using a certificate specific to your environment. So if you wanted to install your third-party patches out on internet-based devices through CMG, you would want to make sure the deployment package only for your third-party updates is distributed to that cloud management gateway, because your clients would need to download that content because it's custom to your environment with your code signing certificate. Good question. So what constraints would cause an application not to be added to the catalog? So let me go ahead and pull up just some criteria. So we have some criteria that we posted. This is actually on our old forum before we move to our user voice. Let's see if I can quickly find this. So request new software. Here we go. So I'll include this in the chat. But as far as kind of the requirements for a new product, it's going to be this here. So basically it needs a silent command line. It needs to install under system context, since that's what Intune and SCCM would run under. We need to have a download URL for it. There are some exceptions like Java and AnyConnect where we can make use of a local content folder. You would just have to download it in that case. But this would include the different requirements that we have, and I'll include that within the answer here. So as far as using variables in the custom script, we don't have any variable options today, like where you could dynamically add the version of the application, but that would be a really good feedback item for our user voice. So I'd recommend putting that in there, and we could see like what type of variables we might be able to expose for allowing you to pass custom variables within your scripts, like if you wanted to tag something with a version or an application name based on kind of the variables that we know about the installation. Yeah, so are you as a company testing all the updates before release? Yeah, the answer is going to be yes to that. I'm going to include the FAQ that specifically talks about the testing that we perform. So we go through testing for every update that we add within our catalog. So that's going to include testing against these operating systems. So what that entails is basically we'll have outdated versions of all these products installed. And then we'll go through and check things like the exit code of those applications, whether or not the installable logic works successfully, and things like that. So every application does get tested, before any type of release would be done for that specific product. And I'm including the link now to that question. Oh, looks like it's already been answered here. Yeah, so as far as applications go, yeah, I mean, we're going to show a new application in the SCCM console, just like a typical application. So these would be independent of software updates. So these would be, just any type of application that you might be accustomed to, and then you could deploy that to any type of collection or task sequence. Okay, it's looking like that's all the questions that we currently have that are unanswered. Let me just filter by unanswered only, see what we got. Okay, so if an update is causing an issue, that's a good question. Can we roll it back? That's a question that we get quite a bit. So the answer to that is going to be you have the ability to roll it back, but you don't have the ability to roll it back using the software update natively. And that's a limitation to SCCM. There's no rollback functionality for software updates directly within the product. But what you can do is, since we create applications and they would correspond to like the same version of the update, we do automatically populate the uninstall string for any of our deployment types for applications. So what you could do is, let's say that you deployed an update to a latest version of an application and you needed to roll that back. You could deploy the application as an uninstall type, and then you could roll it back.
There we go. So as far as getting the background that I was using, yep, I could definitely share that out with you. Just send me an email. Okay, so can I show the detection rules? Yeah, absolutely. So as far as the detection method, what we're doing is we're using PowerShell. So what we're essentially doing at the core of like the functionality would be we're scanning all the applications that are installed, and we're evaluating whether the application is there, whether or not the display, whether or not the version is greater than or equal to the current version that we have. And then if it's an MSI-based installer, there's an OR condition that could also detect it based on the MSI product code. So basically, we're finding a match. We're seeing if the version is greater than or equal to the current version that we created, or if it's a product code, we could also detect it based on it matching the specific product code. So if the application is greater than or equal to the version that we detected, or if the product code is directly installed, and that's what we use for our detection method. Yeah, so if you wanted access to an older version of an application, what you would want to do is just create, like within our service, you would want to choose the option to create a new application each time. That's going to allow it so that you retain access to any previous version that we created from our service. So that's going to allow you to, roll back or have previous versions available if needed. Repair commands are, yes, they're available for any MSI. We'll automatically populate the repair command within the detection method. As far as sharing the Google Chrome homepage script, yeah, just shoot me an email. And yeah, we definitely send that out. It's basically just a reg value. As far as the recording being available, that will probably be available probably sometime this week. So if you do YouTube and then patch my PC, it will be posted on our YouTube channel, and then it will be available under the playlist. And then this would be available within our Patch My PC events and webinars. So we'll post this up here. We actually have a similar video from about 6 days ago that we did at a recent user group, but this should be available probably in a few days. Okay. So supersedence and dependencies, that's a great question. So we do retain any dependencies. This is actually a feature that we just shipped this month. So if you set any type of custom dependencies, we will now retain those within the application itself. So we wouldn't directly set dependencies today, but that would be a good feature request as well. But if you set any custom dependencies, we will retain those whenever the application is updated in place. Do you have customers in higher education universities? Yeah, absolutely. So education is probably one of our biggest sectors. If you go to our testimonials page, so we have about, just for some context, we have about 1,600 enterprises using our product, and that's across about 5 million devices managed. So education, you can directly click the education link, and then this would take you out directly to customer reviews for the education sector. So for example, you'll see a lot of different universities here. You'll see a lot of different K-12. And if you want to, reach out to any of these customers, just shoot us an email, and you could even get some references if you wanted to. But yeah, education is a big sector that we have customers in. But there's quite a few different industries. There's about 200 plus testimonials directly from customers on that page as well. Okay, let's see what other questions we've got here. So if they don't have control to do applications themselves, it's really based on your deployment. So for example, you could have it install per system where they don't need admin rights. So it just depends on whether you're deploying it per user or per device. And it just depends on that option. So you can certainly deploy them even if they're not a customer, and you can get that. Education pricing, yeah. So educations, we do give discounts to EDU. Within our FAQ page, we specifically have a section that talks about discounts. So our education discounts, I believe, are 15%. So EDU and nonprofits by default would automatically get a 15% discount. Okay, so can you add deployments to an existing application without issues? That's a good question. I don't believe that would be a scenario that we support today, like adding your own custom deployment types within an app that we're managing. Send me an email though. I'd be interested in understanding the scenario of why you would need to create a custom deployment type within an app that we're kind of managing. And if there's a good use case for it, we could certainly see what options we would have for allowing that. Okay, I think that's most of everything. Okay, so you want to get in contact with a reference from Sweden. What I would recommend is just going to our testimonials page. And if you see any companies that look like they're Sweden-based, you know, if you have any in the 200 or so that we have that would be interesting, I'd probably reach out to us with a customer that's already provided feedback, just because they're, you know, if they've already provided public feedback, I'd feel more open to contacting them directly to see if they would be open. Thank you for the feedback about getting better and better. And I think that that is just about it. All right, thank you everybody for joining. I hope this was valuable. And if you have any questions, feel free to just shoot us an email, justin@patchmypc.com, and I'll answer any follow-up questions that you guys have. Thanks, everybody.